Hello and welcome to your next lesson of Magic and Creation. We are going to have some fun talking about her psyche, and we are going to have a look at some of the subconscious things that inform decision making so that you can take some of this into account with your marketing and the way that you speak to your niche ideal client. When it comes to your content, there are a few key things that we can do to make your content more captivating, more engaging, and ultimately more successful in being able to attract clients, bring them into your work, and have them actually read your content or view your content that you're sharing. So the first one of note is that from a neuroscience perspective, we have about 20 seconds to make something relevant from the first glance on a post or a blog or whatever it is that you're sharing in terms of your content, to make it relevant. That's not in relation to telling a story. If you're telling a story and you can capture them in the first couple of lines with something really engaging, and you've gotten their attention, and they'll probably continue reading the longer story. But if you don't make it relevant in the first 20 seconds, they are already gone. So recommendations are using a story. That's a great opening, but telling the story in a way that does make it relevant immediately to them. You can use questioning to kind of pull them in, asking them a direct question that's about themselves, a direct call out, like, hey, intuitive entrepreneurs, something that lets them know this post is for them. You can also use imagery or something that's really engaging and captivating. Doing a lot of chunky, unbroken paragraphs can lose their attention unless it's very well written. And it's helpful if you're going to have a longer post like that to break it up at a minimum. Visual breaking it up so that they can continue to follow along, and ensuring that your story flows in a way that continues to be engaging and relevant. In relationship to how much time you have to deliver a key point when you are doing like a training or a video or some kind of longer post, perhaps, you have 15 to 20 minutes to land your point. Humans aren't really capable of taking in material for longer than 20 minutes without a break. Now, what that means is that if your content is longer than 20 minutes, their brain will take the break with or without your permission. And what I'm saying by that is after about 20 minutes, they will tune out. They're not doing it on purpose. It has nothing to do with how interesting you are. This is simply neuroscience. You have to give breaks, whether you're doing a video like this. And if you'll notice, that's one of the reasons why my training here is broken up into segments so that you are watching videos that are shorter than 20 minutes at a time. So it's really important that you provide brain breaks, keep your videos shorter. If you have a lot of material, do break it up into smaller segments. And if there is context that is needed, provide it separately. 24 hours is the maximum amount of time to apply that new learning to life. So if someone has taken in new material, new learning, but has not found a direct application for that new learning into their life, it gets ditched after about 24 hours. So the easiest way to do this is to give them a simple 5-minute takeaway action item. And the reason why it has to be simple is because if you give them some kind of like long, complex thing to follow, they probably won't do it. Give them something that they can do instantly to directly apply that to their life, whatever it is that you're teaching them, whatever it is that you're hoping for them to internalize. And finally, with learning styles, when we think about different ways that people learn, there are kind of 3 main categories. You often will have a very high percentage of your audience that is a visual learner. And research shows that it's roughly 65% of the population that needs to be able to see, something visual or to read text. So that's everything from infographics to images to ideally being able to actually read the words. And that's where having transcriptions, having written text, having things captioned can be very helpful to your visual learners. Around 5% of the population tends to be auditory, meaning that they can learn just by listening. And what I find so interesting about that is that when you look at things like lecture halls on college campuses, or a lot of the traditional methods that we have used in our education system to deliver learning, so much of it has been auditory. And yet there's such a tiny fraction of people that can really learn purely by listening without having the reinforcement of a visual tool or kinesthetic, and we'll talk about that, kinesthetic tools. So when you are delivering trainings, when you are delivering content, when you are delivering any kind of educational material, it's really important that you take that into account. There's a very tiny amount of people that are capable of just listening and understanding without any other supportive tools to help them to internalize that information. And then we have our kinesthetic learners, which are a relatively high percentage, about 30% of people need to do something. They need to do something. So if you are teaching someone how to do something on their website, you are teaching them how to construct something using a technology platform, those learners must go in and do the thing in order to learn. They cannot just watch a YouTube video and know what to do. Now, the kinesthetic takeaway does not have to be physical, but it has to be an action. So it doesn't necessarily have to be they go in and they build a website. It could be something like, I want you to write down the answer to a question. And kinesthetic learners are often the ones who are note takers because they find that the simple act of writing down some key words that they're hearing reinforces what they're learning and what they're digesting and actually taking in. So when you have your content supporting all three, you're going to have a blend of some visual tools, auditory tools where you are speaking or you have some amount of auditory information that's available. And then for the kinesthetic learners, a takeaway, an action item, a worksheet, a workbook, something they can write in, something they can do. And because there are some people who take a very long period of time to digest information, to make decisions, to come to a conclusion, and because we also know that there are folks who need to do their research, they need to read up on everything, they need to understand that you know your topic, that you know what you're talking about, there's a huge value in consistency. And this is like, I call it the dirty little C word because nobody wants to talk about consistency. It's like it's not fun, but I understand the reluctance to be consistent, but I think that it's also misunderstood. When I'm talking about consistency, I'm not talking about you have to do a newsletter every single week. I'm not talking about you have to do 3 posts on your Facebook page every single day. I'm talking about consistently showing up and sharing your message over a span of time. It also builds trust. It adds to their neural network, the things that they're laying down by learning your material and hearing about the things that you have to teach. The more exposure they have, the more it is likely to stick for them. When those neurons repeatedly fire together, they wire together, they reinforce the neural pathways of that thought, that education, that learning, or that activity. And later when we get into sustainable marketing, we'll talk about how to create consistency in a way that doesn't drive you crazy and that really does feel easy for you to flow with. That was so much fun. I can't wait to get into the next one.